All right, moving on. Let's talk about combined least and most favorite classes to combine. So I'll start off first with I felt like obviously Houston with the big move of taking C.J. Stroud and doing a trade to get Will Anderson right after him, along with Henry Toto out of Alabama, the nice linebacker there, and then Jared Patterson. Yeah, they could be plug and play in a lot of different offensive line positions for Notre Dame. I felt like they did a really good haul there for Houston that's really trying to rebuild themselves. As far as like my least favorite, I definitely have Philly, who no, this is still my favorite. Sorry, I had two because I had Philly taking all the Georgia Bulldogs over these last couple of years, just building themselves into a Georgia Bulldog team. I mean, they're just loaded. Philly is just loaded in defensive side. Um, I really don't see how they can't win the title next year, but that's just me. But my least favorite is the 49ers. I mean, part of that's their own problem with some trades. They had no picks till the third round, but then usually one of the third round picks on a kicker, and then a lot of their picks just weren't value picks to me, and so I just feel like they could have done better overall with their draft class. So Jordan, pass it over to you. Who's your favorite, least favorite draft class this year?
So my favorite is I just I couldn't pick Houston because Tony already said Houston. So I have the Packers. I think they did a really good job with their amount of picks they had, just because they finally got rid of that Aaron Rodgers guy. Um, I think the defensive players they got can fit really well. They didn't get as many early on. They got an edge, tight end, wide receiver, and another tight end. I think they're gonna. I think with their Jordan Love offense, I think they're gonna slow it down and not pass the ball too much. And I think that two tight end, they're gonna have a lot more two tight end sets. And I think them seeing that two tight ends they just drafted, we'll see a lot of those two guys. But it's just the sheer number of picks, and I think they got value for their picks. Their first pick was Lucas Van Ness. Yeah, he wasn't a full-on starter all year. Didn't even. I don't think he didn't start at all. But I think the length and the height can really help someone or be good for someone on a defensive line. So I think the Packers had my favorite. I'm not going to be like Tony and pick the 49ers, even though that's really easy because the 49ers had a horrible, horrible draft. Mine's the Minnesota Vikings. Besides their first pick, which was Jordan Addison, other than that, I don't think they really got a big bang for their buck. Yeah, they didn't have a second round pick, but they drafted a USC corner. That just anyone saying USC corner, I don't see how you draft that. But other than that,
It's
it just
based on talent alone that they feel like they can develop him. Probably based on
I know, but
USC probably could have developed him.
it's
Yeah,
just
no, I
funny.
agree though.
They drafted Jaron Hall late. I just think the players they drafted, I feel like they were pulling for straws, kind of. I think their fourth and fifth round picks were decent, but after that, their second, fifth round, and seventh round pick, just kind of random, jumbled up kind of mess. I think after their first round pick, they just kind of, like Jess said earlier, threw something at the board, and whatever name it landed on, they picked that. So
All right, Jess, who do you got? Favorite, least favorite?
So my favorite was the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they got a ton of value through their first six picks, really. I like every guy that they took. I don't know much about Spencer Anderson, their last pick, the guard out of Maryland.
That's
But
good.
Broderick Jones fills a hole. Joey Porter, you get the family ties and fills a hole. I really like the duo that they got with Keanu Benton and Nick Herbig out of Wisconsin. And Darnell Washington, I think, has the most upside of any tight end in this draft. I mean, the dude's just a physical freak of
Yeah,
nature. I mean, a guy that big shouldn't be able to move like that. And worst comes to worst with what he's shown. Pittsburgh's had issues on the offensive line. You can have 6 offensive linemen with him out there. And then I think Corey Trice Jr., the corner out of Purdue. I had him like as a mid-round guy, and they got him all the way down there in the 7th. He's got a lot of upside. I know some people were really high on him, others were really low on him. Clearly, with the way the board fell, the NFL guys were a bit lower on him than I was, but I think that's tremendous value that they got there. As for my least favorite, well, I think we all had the Niners. But I'm going to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here, and not necessarily with what they did this year, but what they gave up. I was not thrilled with how Houston went about things. If they really liked Will Anderson, then I think they should have just taken him at 2 and then maybe just let, what's his face? The CJ Stroud fall. They gave up a lot to move back up.
I felt like if they did that, I think CJ Stroud would have went next with another trade. Somebody would have went up and got him.
I know, but like when the trade was first announced, I thought they were trading Cleveland's first round pick. So I was like, oh, that's a great move. They keep their first. But they gave up a second. They gave up 12. They gave up their first round next year. And I still think that despite how well I liked a bunch of their other picks. Wasn't super high on Brandon Hill, Xavier Hutchinson, or Henry 2020.
I like Henry.
Tank Dell, again, another guy that I'm iffy on. And I just think they're going to be a bottom 3 team in the NFL next year. And there's just so much more talent. In terms of like how, I think we're talking about this in a little bit, but in terms of like those blue chip, outstanding prospect level guys, I'm not thrilled with it. So they're going to be praying that CJ Stroud hits, or else, there's a very good chance they're missing out on Caleb, May, Ewers.
Well, if they're going to be a bottom 3 team next year, they could, if they like what CJ Stroud shows, they can always just trade CJ Stroud next year and go after one of those picks.
Well, if he's not good next year, what team at the top of the draft is going to want to trade that?
Well, you don't have to go like a big trade. I'm saying like get a 5th, 6th round for him next year and then just go for one of those guys again if you're at the top of the board.
They don't have their first round pick though.
I know, but they can make a trade and go for him if they some kind of package, I feel. But I feel like it's a great trade. You're saying that if CJ Stroud doesn't hit, but if they believe like he does hit, then it's a great trade for them, right? Because they feel like they got the quarterback of the future, they got their defensive player of the year of the future, and they have their both sides of the ball taken care of. Now they just have to rebuild the rest of the roster to kind of match with them. I felt like go for it. You're rebuilding anyway. You're going to be losing anyway. At least have talent on your team that can, be leaders.
Houston is going to be praying that Cleveland remains a garbage organization and that Deshaun Watson never regains his Houston form, but it's very much a if Cleveland ends up being good next year and they're terrible, then I think this is not going to be looked at very fondly, because we were talking about before the draft, none of us were like, yeah, CJ Stroud is this top tier prospect. We think he could develop into a solid enough quarterback, but solid enough quarterback is not what you're going for with a 2nd overall pick and then giving up on a potentially generational prospect.
Yeah, but
it's not they're going to be missing out on Caleb and May. Again, we're going to be talking about this in a bit.
Yeah, but I'm like, here's the thing. I'm not going to tank. I don't believe in tanking. So if you have a chance to take I feel the best quarterback in this draft was CJ Stroud. So they went out and they got him. And if he can put it all together, then you're good to go. If he can't, then yeah, you have to go through this process again. But he's better than what they've had the last few years. So go out and get someone.
That most certainly is true. He is better than Davis Mills.
The thing is, we never know how a quarterback's going to transition to the NFL.
Yeah.
So yeah, Caleb Williams and Drake May could have amazing seasons next year, but then they come to the NFL and they just so you just never know.
Drake May, he plays very similar to Sam Howell. I haven't seen Sam Howell light the world on fire in college football. I think Sam Howell did more with his talent than what Drake May has done so far. People dislike the ceiling of Drake May, right? So, Yeah, you could give up this year, go for the ceiling, Drake. Maybe what if he doesn't pan out? You're back in the same situation. You gave it a couple years. I think always go for it. In my opinion, I'm always there'll be a competitive person who wants to go out and try to win.
And then I'm fine with them taking CJ at 2 if that's their thought process.
That's-
But again,
But
just
you
giving
never
up-
know. The amount of people getting hurt, I mean, could the way Caleb Williams plays pulls him in or puts him in that category of he can get hurt more often than he
So could
not.
Mahomes.
Yeah, I know, and that's the thing. But the thing is, the difference between Mahomes and Caleb Williams is Mahomes already has shown his ability in NFL. Caleb Williams hasn't. So if he gets hurt next year next year in college, then what? That's the thing.
I still think people are going to take him that high, but
Depends on what he gets hurt. I mean, that's the thing. You don't know what these players are going to pan out to be in the NFL until.
I mean, Tua. I mean, if we're talking about like now, we're going to get into some of these top prospects. If remember Tua's injury, and he wasn't near the prospect that many people consider Caleb to be. I mean, one of the doctors, this quote has stayed with me. It's like the level of damage done to Tua, what was it, his hip? Like that's the kind of injury you see in a car crash, not a football game. Like that is the kind of injury he had. And so, people were still pretty high on him, and now he's dealing with all the concussions, but that's more of a size issue. But I don't know, like, these Ohio State guys, I mean, how many of them were taken this year? But no quarterback has really ever thrived out of Ohio State. I don't know. I would have preferred if they took CJ Stroud, they take CJ Stroud then. But for me, it's more of the fact that theoretically, let's say they take CJ Stroud at 2, and the next year, they got their pick and they're bad, and then Cleveland's middling. They could pair him up with Marvin Harrison Jr. again, and then who knows who else they could get, Again, but that's all projection. But that's the thing, though. I'm projecting with this. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, I think if they feel like he's the best quarterback and he has a good ceiling, and you pair him with the best, they feel like they're the best defensive player, then it's a no-brainer for them. But yeah, everything's a projection. Quarterback is look at high school. How many 5-star quarterbacks actually pan out in college, and then you take that, how many actually pan out in NFL? It's very, very small amount. So it's definitely not a science that you can predict for sure. All right.